Aloha! Thanks for discovering the mysteries of Hana with Temptation Tours.
Kathy and I have made this video as our way of personally saying thanks to you for selecting Temptation Tours.
Dave's been to Hana more than 1,000 times and can ensure you a quality experience.
What's uniquely different about Temptation Tours is our custom-built 6 and 8 passenger limo vans, along with experienced and knowledgeable driver guides. Now, let's revisit the many marvels of Hana's tropical forest.
If ever there was a place where gods and goddesses mingled on earth, it would certainly be Maui. A breathless blend of beauty, mystery, and legend, Maui's physical charms intertwined with a timeless lifestyle all its own. A place that has been described as one where the hand of man rests lightly. This melding of beauty and spirit is most evident on and around the Hana coast, under the majestic sentinel of Haleakala, Maui's symbol of power and history. "25 million years ago, giant cracks in the seafloor spewed volcanic material some 5 miles beneath the surface of the ocean, creating the Hawaiian Islands. Maui is among the most recent of the islands, and Haleakala has erupted as recently as 1790, making it an inactive but hardly extinct volcano. Man is a relative newcomer here. It is widely believed that Polynesian seafarers from the Marquesas Islands, some 2,400 miles to the southwest, set sail some 1,500 to 2,000 years ago. For the next 800 years, these intrepid explorers went back and forth between their new home in Hawaii and their native Marquesas, as well as Tahiti. Around 1300, these journeys came to an abrupt halt, and the islands settled into a routine that centered around developing a thriving economy and culture. History and genealogy were important to Hawaiians, and they recorded their history through chants, or mele, that were handed down through the generations. From this oral history, we learned that Hana was among the first settlements on Maui. It was home to many ali'i, or royalty, for generations. Many great battles were waged over control of the lush and fertile land surrounding Hana and its bountiful supply of fresh, sweet water. Most of the battles fought over Hana took place between 1200 and 1500 AD. It wasn't until 1780 that King Kahekili finally annihilated the interlopers from the Big Island who had seized Hana and held it for some 20 years. The arrival of Captain James Cook in 1778 signaled the end of the Hawaiian lifestyle as it had been practiced for 1,000 years or more. Ever-increasing Western contacts, especially the arrival of New England missionaries early in the 19th century, began to erode the ancient ways and ancient beliefs. Most tragically, Western diseases decimated the Hawaiian population. Today, we struggle to hold on to what was, to honor the values and lifestyles that tied the people of these lovely islands to the land, the Aina. There is no better route back in time than to take the road to Hana and beyond, a path through a forest of wonder, to a place whose timeless legacy of history and tradition is serene and secure. Getting there, however, is not an easy task. While offering spectacular vistas, the road, only completed in 1922, and not even fully paved until 1982, is a sometimes arduous task. It involves crossing 54 single-lane bridges and negotiating 617 curves. It is a formidable endeavor, to say the least. Ironically, the difficult drive has actually helped Hana retain its isolation and therefore its inherent charm and mystique. Fortunately, Temptation Tours takes the hassle out of the highway. We begin our trek in Paia, the last of the great sugar plantation camp towns from the 1800s. People here once provided labor for the giant sugar plantations that once dominated Maui. While sugar still plays a major role in the economy of Maui, Paia today plays host to a colorful group of artists and craftspeople and has maintained its original charm. Just a few minutes from town is one of the best windsurfing beaches in the world, Ho'okipa. Skirted by large stands of year-round hibiscus plants, this beach is the scene for some of the most important windsurfing tournaments in the world. Even the most experienced surfers know to practice extreme caution when entering these waters, as conditions, currents, and wave sets can vary rapidly and without warning. Moving away from Ho'okipa, the semi-arid weather of Paia begins to get cooler, yet more humid. You're approaching Haiku, pineapple country. Although only a few miles from Paia, Haiku receives almost twice the rainfall. Passing by the Philippine ground orchids that ring ancient pasture lands, one begins to notice the seemingly infinite shades of green that create a mosaic of forest. Curiously enough, almost all the vegetation here is less than 60 years old. Virtually everything on the Hana coast was cut down to build one of the great engineering wonders of the world, the East Maui Irrigation Company's elaborate aqueduct. Considering it takes a ton of water to produce a pound of sugar, the vision in 1876 of Samuel Alexander and Henry Baldwin to move vast amounts of water across rugged terrain to a spot where it would do the most good is truly remarkable. The two made a deal with King Kalakaua. The king would lease the land he owned to allow construction, but Alexander and Baldwin had to complete the project in 2 years, or the land reverted to the king and the deal was off. So began a furious effort by 200 workers to achieve the feat. The enterprise was further complicated when Henry Baldwin lost an arm in a mill accident. Undaunted, he led by example and was always the first to scamper down ropes in the most precarious locations to show his determination. 60 million gallons a day now serpentine their way through 50 miles of tunnels and 23 miles of ditches to irrigate the cane fields of central Maui. Today, the headquarters of EMI is in Kailua, and many workers who tend the vast system live here. Once a prison camp, Kailua now features many neatly trimmed gardens and guava trees. Also prevalent in this area are mountain apples, wild hibiscus, and yellow, white, and kahili gingers. Past the 9-mile marker is vegetation that comes as close to tropical jungle as Hawaii has to offer. This is Waikamoe, where stands of bamboo and eucalyptus trees guard one of the few public trails available. The Waikamoe Ridge Trail shows off a marvelous bamboo forest which claims roots deep within the realms of Hawaiian mythology. Heliconias and lobster claws also abound. At mile marker 11 is the Pu'ohukamoa stream and waterfall. Here you can picnic near waterfalls and steep cliffs. A nearby path leads to vegetation that displays the tremendous diversity of Maui. Also visible from this vantage point is Keopuka Rock, about half a mile away. It is home to many birds, but is generally considered inaccessible to humans. Just over a mile down the road is Kaumahina State Park, where fresh tap water and other facilities await. A spectacular view of historic Keanai Peninsula is also to be found here. As you walk around this area, you can see the wide variety of ginger plants, lilies, white birds of paradise, all prospering under a canopy of eucalyptus and Formosan koa trees. A few meandering miles away lies Honomanu Bay, or Sharktooth Bay, as the local people call it. Here the cliffs climb to 300 feet, the highest along the entire route. In less than a mile, you are adjacent to a paddling pool at the end of Honomano Stream's estuary. As you look into the wildly rugged valley, the second largest on Maui, you can see the oldest exposed rocks on all of Haleakala. African tulip trees contrast beautifully with the countless shades of green that inhabit this place. Now over halfway to Hana, the journey brings you to one of the most interesting places in all of Maui, the Keanai Peninsula. Keanai has been populated continuously since the first Polynesian settlers discovered Maui. Its huge valley stretches all the way to the crater of Haleakala. According to Hawaiian legend, there was no water here until Kane, the creator, thrust his walking stick into solid rock and drew a gush of fresh water. It is this abundant supply of water that has kept Keanai such an interesting place for nearly 2 centuries. Geologically, Keanai is the site of a rather recent and very substantial lava flow from Haleakala that gives the coastline a rugged, spectacular, and somewhat lunar appearance. The population here took its modern-day appearance around the turn of the century. At that time, Chinese men who had come to work on sugar contracts married local women upon the completion of their contracts and sought lands and lives of their own. Keanai is an extremely close-knit community where everyone is, one way or another, related to everyone else. It is also a spiritual place where Hawaiian traditions still thrive. Taro is cultivated here where rice once was, bathed in the frequent downpour associated with the unique weather pattern. The wealth of moisture produces huge hanging lobster claws, red gingers, breadfruit, and parrot's beak heliconias. Well-tended gardens are everywhere to be found here in Keanai Village. The Keanai School, one of the smallest in all of Hawaii, was the first to have a kupuna, or elder, teach the children the chants and folkways of their ancestors. Now many other schools are providing an increasing amount of Hawaiian studies. In Wailua is Kopili'ula Falls, one of many different cascades that dominate this section of the Hana Highway. Water plunges